My sense is that the mood of the nation's changed. We've stopped obsessing over the daily COVID cases. We're now talking about the rollout of the vaccine. The government's got a very clear and deliberate plan to roll the vaccine out over 5 phases. And that means we now have the opportunity to talk about the rolling back of restrictions in line with the rollout of the vaccine, and that makes us cautiously optimistic.
We're now also starting to talk about a vaccine passport. How do you see that working for a company like Sydney Airport?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of different companies at the moment that are trialling different types of vaccine certificates or passports, if you will. So there's not one single vaccine certificate that's going to be necessarily adopted. Our preference as an airport is it's part of the ticketing and booking process. So when you book a ticket to go overseas, you have to establish that you've had the vaccine, and then you can't board the aircraft before it's verified that you've actually had the vaccine and you show your vaccine certificate. So thinking about that in the context of people living overseas and coming back to Australia, we'd like to think that before they even got on the plane, it was verified that they've had the vaccine and that they're pre-cleared to travel to Australia. And then what we'd like to see is a scenario where it's uploaded to your digital passport, so you can still use the electronic gates as you come through security at Sydney Airport, and we don't go back to the old days of having to have every single passenger processed by a Border Force officer.
There's private companies, as you say, sort of trialling different, vaccine passports. Is this something that should be better done in the hands of governments?
I think we'll have to work together with government. The government ultimately control the border, so they're going to want to be comfortable with the technology. And I know that the relevant organisations that are thinking about this are having conversations with government at the moment. So that's all happening in the background.
What do you think all this means for people who don't get the vaccine?
And this is the grand bargain. If you get the vaccine, then you should get your life back. I don't think we can ask people to get the vaccine, but then be told they can't go on holiday interstate, they can't plan a wedding, they can't attend a funeral, they can't go overseas because a minority of people have said that they're not going to get the vaccine. At the same time, we have to make sure that we're doing our best to protect everyone. And I think what we've learnt through COVID is that with really strong health practices, with good, strong social distancing and mask wearing, we're seeing the prevalence of things like the flu drop significantly. So I think we're going to have to get used to a world where we have to live with COVID, but I don't want to see a scenario where those people who sign up to get the vaccine don't get their life back.
Flipping to the business of Sydney Airport, how many workers do you still have on JobKeeper, and what happens to them after JobKeeper expires in March?
We're a really large company. We've got good access to liquidity. We did a $2 billion equity raise last year. We've got $3.5 billion of liquidity. What I worry about are the small and medium-sized businesses in the industry that don't have the same levels of liquidity as us and don't have the ability to survive once JobKeeper rolls off. So I would like to see some form of extension of JobKeeper, but really targeted for industries that are still significantly affected and with a focus on those companies that really need it.
The airport's passenger numbers slid 75% in 2020 compared to 2019. What are you estimating, and I know it's difficult to do, it's crystal ball kind of stuff, but what are you estimating they'll be down by this year compared to 2019?
It's so hard to answer that question. The numbers are bracing. We were down 75% for the full year, but the majority of those numbers were in the first quarter last year. Since April onwards last year, we were down by around 97% on international and around 90% on domestic for the 2020 year, so tough numbers. We've modelled and remodelled on a regular basis, but every model we do, we know is going to be wrong. What we do know is that when borders open, people do come back and travel. So when borders opened in the first half of December, we saw a 200% increase in domestic activity. And we're starting to see people come back now, the borders are open again.
Geoff Culbert, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks.